For over half a century, Canada has been a world leader in the production, use, and development of life-saving medical isotopes. The world is counting on Canada to expand this leadership role to support the diagnosis and treatment of cancer, ensuring medical equipment is safe for use, and to tackle some of our greatest challenges in health sciences. Welcome to the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council's Isotopes for Hope podcast with your host, James Scongack, Chair of the CNIC. In this series, we interview Canadian leaders who are making a difference every day. We hope you enjoy this episode of the Isotopes for Hope podcast.
I'm really thrilled to have on our Canadian Nuclear Isotopes for Hope podcast today, Dr. Jonathan Cirtain with us. He's the Senior Vice President and Chief Development Officer at BWXT Technologies and President and CEO of BWXT Medical. He has a long and distinguished career in the industry space. He joined BWXT as Director of Commercial Technologies in 2017 and was second to Oak Ridge National Lab in 2018, where he served as Associate Lab Director responsible for the Nuclear Reactor Development Program. He spent 9 years with NASA, which is really impressive, and he received the prestigious Presidential Early Career Award for Scientists and Engineers and held positions of increasing responsibility from astrophysicist to the Science Research Office Manager. He's also co-founded machine learning and data science analytics companies. Jonathan is an absolutely impressive and strong leader in this space. And I really appreciate you joining us. And I know BWXT is thrilled to have you leading the charge of their medical isotope business.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you too, James.
So, Jonathan, why don't we kind of take a step back? I mean, obviously, throughout your career, you have, you've done many things. Obviously, the work at BWXT Medical is really exciting. Can you sort of take a step back and share with us, tell us a little bit about BWXT and specifically BWXT Medical?
Our CEO, Rex Jevenen, had the intent of growing the business through innovation and the capabilities and infrastructure that came along with the new BWXT. And one of the first instantiations was to stand up a research and development organization. That's when I came in. And our first project was actually the development of a radiochemical processing technique to take natural molybdenum targets and concentrate Moly-99 to make a radiochemical that could be used in technetium-99M generators. So my first job, Director of Commercial Technologies, was to take that internal capability and commercialize it. So I actually started our medical business. The development of that radiochemical processing technique led to the decision to actually make technetium generators because of the uniqueness of that radiochemical. It really required its own kind of packaging. But we made that packaging to be a drop-in replacement for what was available in the market. Generators in the way in which they worked. So we wanted the footprint not to have to change in the pharmacy or the hospital, and the product, the radiochemical that comes out, technetium, be the same for those radio pharmacists. So we developed that technology that led to the purchase of the medical isotope assets from Nordion. Capabilities, facilities in Canada, right outside Ottawa, and in Vancouver. So that's essentially how we got into the Canadian space and into nuclear medicine writ large.
So Jonathan, taking a step back, BWXT's journey here has really been a company that was really preeminent and prominent in the power generation sector, nuclear in particular, and through your expansion plans, the acquisition of assets at Nordion and really building this out, it's a very bold move and a very impressive one. Maybe just take a little bit of a step back for our listeners and talk about isotopes at a very high level. And so when you talk about medical isotope production and this journey that you've been on, can you really maybe share with our listeners what medical isotopes you've been specifically focused on and what those isotopes are used for?
So there's two irradiation services constructs: nuclear reactors, cyclotrons, or particle accelerators. When we acquired the assets, we actually acquired capabilities in Vancouver that included multiple cyclotrons, including the British Columbia Canadian national asset Triumph that has a 520 MeV cyclotron on it. And with that large cyclotron, you can make strontium-82. So you irradiate with protons a rubidium target, and you get strontium-82 out. When it decays into rubidium-82, which is used in positron emission tomography for myocardial perfusion imaging. It's kind of a new technique that's out there, been around for a little bit, but starting to grow in its adaptation as more positron emission tomography machines proliferate across the globe, frankly. So that strontium-82 product was something that we were capable of making with the Triumph machine, but by adding in other radiation services support systems in South Africa and now with Arizona Isotopes in Indianapolis, we were able to increase the overall production of that particular isotope. There are other isotopes in our diagnostic portfolio that we're also expanding our capacity to manufacture. Indium-111 is used much like technetium in single photon emission computed tomography techniques, mostly for blood flow studies through the heart or through the lungs or through the brain, perfusion techniques. So Indium-111 is used there. The local company in Hamilton here, Fusion Pharmaceuticals, uses Indium-111 chloride in combination with their special molecules as they determine what patients can enter into their clinical trials for actinium-225. So we supply the Indium-111 for them. We also supply them actinium-225. Same technique. We take that large cyclotron out in Vancouver, and instead of a rubidium target, in this case we're using a thorium-232 target, irradiate, separate out the radium-225, and we can make effectively a actinium-225 generator. Concentrate the radium-225 in a column, run a chemical through it, and out comes a highly concentrated actinium-225, which is now being used by both Bayer and Fusion in clinical trials. In fact, Bayer is actually doing human clinical trials with BWXT supplied actinium products. So we've been growing this portfolio of radiochemicals using our radiation services capabilities in Vancouver. Now, recently, we've been working with Ontario Power Group and Laurentis to use our target delivery system to make a different radiochemical using that system, molybdenum-99. That is used concentrated into a column, and then we use that to make our technetium generator. So I'd say that BWXT is really into radiochemical processing, concentration, and following good manufacturing practices to make those radiochemicals available for whatever the end state drug substances there are. The only real instance where we're making finished drugs is TheraSphere for Boston Scientific, which is something that came with the business. Right. But as Boston Scientific grows that for liver cancer treatments, we're seeing that product grow for us. So long story short, mostly we act as a merchant supplier for active pharmaceutical ingredient grade radiochemicals. In some instances, we use our assets to make finished drugs, but mostly we're this merchant supplier of that processing capability, much like we're merchant suppliers for commercial power systems for Bruce Power in Ontario, or merchant suppliers for naval reactors for the U.S. government.
So no, that's really helpful. And so big picture here, you really have a pretty broad footprint across the landscape. You have production in reactors, you have production in cyclotrons, and then you're pretty critical in the processing space. So I now want to focus a bit of the discussion on your last comment, which was the project between BWXT Medical and Ontario Power Generation at Darlington. Obviously a very significant undertaking for both companies, producing a diagnostic isotope. Can you talk about the size of the size of the demand for diagnostic isotopes, number one, to give people a sense of just because it's a massive volume of medical isotopes we're talking about, and really what you've been able to put in place in partnership with Ontario Power Generation? Absolutely.
So about 50 million people globally will receive a dose or a series of doses of technetium-99M derived products. They're used for all sorts of things. It's still the largest radiopharmaceutical product in terms of total numbers of doses delivered. So, and they're used for a variety of different things, from cardiac care, understanding stress tests kind of thing, to diagnosis of Alzheimer's. Technetium really is the cornerstone for the diagnostic portfolio for radiopharmacies, hospitals globally. And that is about, in terms of volume of material, that's about 8,000 curies worth of material per week, because you're doing, 150, 200,000 people are getting a dose per week, and those are measured in this unit, the curie. And so North America is about 7,000, 8,000 curies worth. I'm sorry, 6,000, 7,000 curies worth, and then the rest of the world is factored into whatever the residual is. And so in North America, we need to be able to manufacture of order 4, 5, 6,000 curies worth to get to, a meaningful component of the total addressable market. It should be noted that the facilities there in Canada used to deliver more than 80% of the world's supply of technetium. And then Chalk River Reactor was shut down, and that capability kind of went into stasis.
But really what you've done is you have, between BWXT Medical, your partnerships, you've really come into a very significant place here to, almost recover that capacity that Canada had.
Exactly. So that we had to have both the facilities, that capability in Canada, but then we had to have somewhere where we could irradiate the large volume of material necessary to feed into our novel process. So unlike the standard today, we don't irradiate a uranium target that has a lot of fission waste, potentials for proliferation issues, et cetera. We're irradiating a natural molybdenum target. And so we need a system that can process a lot by mass and volume of molybdenum. That's what we've installed in the Ontario Power Reactor Unit 2. It's capable of about 8 kilograms of irradiated material on a weekly basis, which is a substantial volume of material. We're going to use about half of that material in our initial efforts to commercialize that product. And it's a very large undertaking to put 32 targets in and out of that reactor on an annual basis.
But it's great to see a commercial power reactor that has a long-term future. In the case of Darlington, that has been refurbished. So we know it's going to operate for 35 years, very high reliability. It's a real success story to BWXT Medical and Ontario Power Generation. And I want to talk a bit more about the global market. So sort of big picture of the 50 million people a year that will receive a diagnostic. What percentage of that supply do you expect BWXT Medical to be providing?
So we're really only going to address the North American market by the way that our product works. It's the amount of volume that we have. And our intent would be to get into the 30 to 40% of the total addressable market in North America. So supplying both Canada and the United States. 30, 40% of that marketplace.
But really, if I looked at it over a 5 to 10 year period, you're into the tens and tens of millions of people in Canada and the U.S.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So very very significant. Jonathan, I want to talk about people. So BWXT and I'll put my bias on the table. I've done a lot of work with BWXT during my time at Bruce Power and continuing my time at Bruce Power. And I just think just a fantastic organization to work with. They're one of our critical suppliers. The work in Cambridge is unbelievable. And what's always impressed me about BWXT is really just the technical capability that you have in the organization. Can you talk about as you and Rex and the team really made this leap into BWXT Medical, how did you walk us through that people equation? How did you take some of that expertise that you had in the power generation business, and how did some of that apply to the growth and creation of BWXT Medical?
Well, so you can't make anything without people. And the tagline that we have at BWXT is innovation. People strong, innovation driven. And we actually intentionally behave around that motto. We've diversified the ways in which we support our personnel, the way we bring people in. Last year we hired, net out, we hired 700 people across the corporation. We're growing in Canada. We've got more than 1,300 employees now in Ontario and British Columbia when you combine both our power and our medical side. So bringing in kind of a diversity of capabilities at the senior level was one of job ones for Rex. So he's diversified, he's grown out that leadership team. And in one of those instances, we brought in a great commercial or a chief administrative officer, Bob Duffy. And one of the things that we've done with Bob, grown a fellows program. That fellows program incentivizes a career track for engineers and scientists so that you do have, a capability for ongoing innovation. We have other career tracks for the development of first-line management. We have career tracks to support union expansion of technologies and capabilities so that, welding in one type can migrate into a welding in another type. We've made investments around predictive maintenance to help increase the overall utilization of our large equipment for making steam generators and pressure vessels. So we've been trying to do things that enable growth in career paths, incentivize and be attractive to the types of people that we need to help continue to be innovative, to serve our customers well. And then I think one of the more base things that we are working on is the way to grow and sustain a company, not just like BWXT Medical, but just generally, is hire very good people, train them well, and give them a career path for growth. And so that takes time. You have to attract them from the right you have to attract them at the university and bring them in, train them to do the type of work that you need them to do, and then allow them, a breadth of opportunities for them to grow in their careers. And in some instances, that's grow in a technical way. In other instances, it's grow into management and increasing responsibilities. And so we've been building out our capacity for allowing that growth from an individual contributor all the way up through our senior staff.
And certainly a very rewarding career. You look at the excitement of it, and I really think that focus on people is so important, because that's really the strategic advantage. Last question. I want to talk about Canada and our isotope sector, and you have been you've been a strong supporter and engaged on the executive committee of the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council. And one of the things, Jonathan, you often talk about in other forums is the unique strategic position Canada has. And I know you've worked internationally. Obviously, part of your organization is US-based, so you get a real global perspective. Can you share with us your perspective on Canada's unique position here, and really, I think, offer us a perspective that not many of us who are here in Canada sometimes recognize?
So, thank you for that question. It's my perspective that Canada leads the world in nuclear innovation. Now, the U.S. Navy clearly has, innovation from a different perspective for defense and global security, but the CANDU reactor is such a unique capability for the production of isotopes that it can do a variety of different things, from the things being done at Bruce Power and how that particular system works and feeds into isotope production, to the one now in Darlington, to the very unique infrastructure spread across Canada for the using particle accelerators, Triumph, Canadian Light Source in Saskatchewan, and a variety of different capabilities at McMaster here in Ontario. It's just kind of a breadth of capacity to make an isotope, to do the irradiations. But on top of it all, if you look at who's making all the new drugs, there's a plethora of startups. Fusion is a great example. Point Biopharma was just purchased by Eli Lilly, real success story. Artemis, now just bought by Telix, company out of British Columbia. There's a dozen more where those came from. So the amount of innovation in Canada for the production of isotopes, for the processing of isotopes, and for the development of new drugs really is without precedent globally. And so if you want to make an isotope, come to Canada. That's the way I think about it.
Well, Jonathan, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and for the strong support that BWXT Medical has really had right from the start of the CNIC. We wouldn't be here without you. And I think this has just been a great discussion as we advance this Isotopes for Hope agenda to really give people that perspective. And please pass on our best to John McCory and Rex and the rest of your team for everything they're doing. So thanks very much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, James.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Canadian Nuclear Isotope Council Isotopes for Hope podcast with James Scongack. Please share this podcast and follow us to stay in the loop. To learn more, please visit our website at canadianisotopes.ca.